situation with San Francisco 49ers wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk. And not only the Brandon Aiyuk situation, but really the San Francisco 49ers situation. Because I think in a certain situation, in a similar way, the Niners and Cowboys are very similar. Obviously, San Francisco has a better roster. They have, Pro Bowlers at every level on both sides of the ball. They have made it to what, four out of the last five NFC championship games, two Super Bowl appearances, both close losses to the eventual world champion Kansas City Chiefs. Now, the Niners also went out. They drafted two wide receivers in this draft, including one in the first round. They still have George Kittle. They still have who they call their wide back, Deebo Samuel. And of course, they made a huge investment trading up with the Carolina Panthers to go get Christian McCaffrey a couple off seasons ago. Now, as we talk about with teams when it comes to like the Philadelphia Eagles, who of course paid Jalen Hurts, they paid Devontae Smith. They paid A.J. Brown. They paid Dallas Goddard. They are paying Saquon Barkley. It can happen, but it obviously comes at some deficiencies, maybe having to go younger on the defensive side of the ball because you cannot pay everybody. And I think the Niners have a situation that they are going to have to address because currently, right now, they have the last pick in the 2022 NFL draft, Brock Purdy, as their quarterback. And Brock Purdy is a very controversial quarterback. There are some people in the media that think Brock Purdy is a top five quarterback. There are some people like myself that think Brock Purdy at his best is probably the 14th or 15th or even 16th, right there at average when it comes to being quarterback in the National Football League, and that he would not be as productive if he was not surrounded by Deebo, McCaffrey, Aiyuk, Kittle, Kyle Shanahan as his play caller. And there is some evidence to that. Obviously, we saw Purdy struggle a little bit a year ago when Trent Williams had to miss some time and Deebo had to miss a couple games. And obviously, Aiyuk, I think, missed a game here or there in there as well. So the Aiyuk situation is very fascinating on what San Francisco decides to do. Because if Brock Purdy was undrafted, if San Francisco didn't draft him, if they picked him up off free agency waivers, whatever, Brock Purdy would be in the Jordan Love, Tua Tagovailoa category right now, which is, hey, they are due for a contract extension. And how much are you going to pay Tua? How much are you going to pay Jordan Love? I think still remains to be seen. But because Brock Purdy was drafted, he has to wait 3 years to get that contract extension. So obviously, this is year three for Purdy, year two, if you will, as the full-time starter. So after this year, Brock Purdy, who's been making $900,000 a year, roommating with people in San Francisco, because obviously living out there is very expensive, will be getting a wafty paycheck. And when you go from, 900,000 or whatever the salary cap number will be to 45 million, we assume, or somewhere around there, some cuts are going to have to be made. And in this day and age in the National Football League specifically, when we take a look at wide receiver, we are getting so much production, in my opinion, in the NFL out of wide receivers that come out of college that paying wide receivers, and you obviously got to play great ones when you have them. Your Jamar Chases, your AJ Browns, your Tyreek Hills, your Jalen Waddles, etc., etc. But when you have a very good player, and that's what I think Aiyuk is, I don't think he's a superstar wide receiver. He's probably borderline, top 10, top 12. I think, Marvin Harrison is going to pass him this year. I actually think CeeDee Lamb in Dallas, is a better player than Brandon Aiyuk. I think Brandon Aiyuk, a lot of times, again, is the beneficiary of having so many weapons around him that does San Francisco, who, usually in the Shanahan era, they don't rely on a ton of production from number one wide receivers, if you will. It's spreading the football around. Do you want to pay Brandon Aiyuk? And I think that's the dilemma the San Francisco 49ers are in. Now, if I'm the Niners, I would definitely consider trading one of Brandon Aiyuk or Debo Samuel. I think Aiyuk definitely has more value on the market because I think he is the better player. You guys know I'm not the biggest fan of Debo Samuel. I think anybody that calls himself a wide back is not a great wide receiver, and I think you can easily shut him down if you get up in his face and you sort of put pressure on the San Francisco offensive line that's opposite of Trent Williams, because outside of Trent Williams at offensive line, they're not great. And so again, I think Brock Purdy's a very good quarterback. I don't think he's a great quarterback. I think Brandon Aiyuk is an above average receiver. I don't think he's this spectacular wide receiver. But I do think for a team like a New England, for example, that as a quarterback on a rookie deal, or even a team like Denver, Cortland Sutton's a very good wide receiver. Is he a number one? I don't know that's the case. That as a quarterback on a rookie deal that can afford some money, that can go out and trade a first round pick and maybe a third and, potentially something else to go get Brandon Aiyuk, I think that would be the move. Reportedly, New England called Aiyuk, or called San Francisco, excuse me, and they said no to their offer. The other thing that I think is interesting, and Brandon Aiyuk has been campaigning, we saw him post on TikTok footage of a Washington Commanders practice. And that's a team that, again, already has Terry McLaurin, but they don't really have another complimentary receiver. Their tight end is not great. Their offensive line's not great. They're paying a little bit on their defensive line, but now that they have new infrastructure, new head coach in Dan Quinn, new quarterback in Jane Daniels, and a new owner, that franchise and Brandon Aiyuk could bring some life into that. So that'd be a very interesting situation, though I don't know if San Francisco would be willing to trade him in conference. But if I had to guess, I would say one of two things is either going to happen. Brandon Aiyuk is either going to play his last year in San Francisco this year, and they will go on their merry way, or Brandon Aiyuk will be traded before the season begins. I don't know which way it's going to go right now. I'm leaning more towards him getting traded before the start of the season, because I always say once you have a malcontent in the building, even if you take a little bit less on the dollar, you have to get him out of the building. Football is all about unity, and Corey Aiyuk is not all about the team and all winning the Super Bowls. He wants to get paid the bag now, so that maybe eventually later on he could take a discount and go win a Super Bowl, which I totally get, because wide receivers do get banged up a lot. And again, with the wide receiver market growing, we have another one, Marvin Harrison, Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors. All three of those guys that just came out of college are expected to make big impacts for the Cardinals, for the Bears, and for the Giants, respectively. So by that token, I think the Brandon Aiyuk and wide receiver value as a whole, while they're still great, they're not as necessarily great as they once were. I mean, look at Kansas City. They had hardly any weapons on the outside last year outside of Rashid Rice, and we don't know how he's going to be to start this season, but the Kansas City Chiefs won back-to-back Super Bowls after trading away Tyreek Hill. So to me, the Aiyuk situation, again, very similar to CD in Dallas, though, again, Dallas doesn't have the weapons that San Francisco has, which is why I think CD Lamb will be kept. He will be paid. Brandon Aiyuk will be traded. This is a situation to monitor, but at the end of the day, I think both the player and the team are in the right here. Aiyuk is in the right to get paid, and I think Aiyuk realizes it's not going to be in a San Francisco 49er uniform, and we'll have to see how the Niners, John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan resolve it. And this will be a big test for Brock Purdy. Can he put up the same numbers without Aiyuk in the lineup, potentially? Like that clip from the Brandon Sports Podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brandon Sports Podcast right here on YouTube.